Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, and today we are doing something pretty special. You specifically asked for an explainer that does literally all the heavy lifting, something detailed, visually engaging, and packed with diagrams, so you won't even need to study the work separately. Well, you're in exactly the right place. We are skipping the dense textbooks entirely and delivering the ultimate visual cheat sheet for mastering the project lifecycle. So sit back, because by the end of this explainer, you're going to have everything you need completely locked into your memory.
So, let's just dive right in with the big question. Have you ever wondered why some projects crash and burn spectacularly, while others cross the finish line super smoothly, on time, and on budget? It's not just luck, and it's definitely not magic. It all really comes down to one fundamental concept.
The secret is structure. And our roadmap for this explainer covers exactly that: the defining phase, the planning phase, the executing phase, and the closing phase, topped off with a critical look at project constraints.
Now, the framework making this all happen is the waterfall methodology. Check out the effort curve mapped out here. This is literally the heartbeat of your project. It shows exactly how your effort, your resources, and your own involvement as a project manager fluctuate over time. Notice how things start off kind of small during the definition and planning stages, then absolutely peak right in the middle during delivery, or execution, before sharply tapering off at closure. This visual alone is a huge key to understanding how project energy is actually distributed.
All right, let's kick things off at the very beginning with Phase 1, the defining phase.
Sometimes called the initiating phase, this is where we step back and answer the big what and the why of our project, way before anyone lifts a hammer or writes a single line of code. During this phase, you are figuring out if the project is even possible by doing a feasibility study. Like, is this actually a good choice for the business right now? You're also setting your initial scope boundaries, figuring out exactly who your key stakeholders are, and ultimately, you are working toward getting that all-important project charter signed. That document, it's the golden ticket that formally authorizes the work.
Okay, time for a quick knowledge check to make sure this is actually sinking in. Take a look at this multiple choice question straight from your practice material. It asks, what is the primary purpose of the defining phase of a project? Is it to create a budget, to formally authorize the project, to execute the plan, or to close out the project? So, the crucial takeaway here? The answer is B. The defining phase is absolutely all about formal authorization. You are justifying the project's existence and getting that project charter signed before you spend a single cent of the organization's money. Lock that in your brain.
With the project officially greenlit by the sponsor, we move right into Phase 2, the planning phase.
This is arguably the most crucial stage if you want to avoid a total disaster later on. This phase answers the how. Like, how are we actually going to pull this off? Think of it like building a house. You wouldn't just show up to an empty plot of land and start randomly laying bricks, right? No way. You need a blueprint. You need a timeline. You need a clear budget. The planning phase takes those high-level ideas from Phase 1 and breaks them down into actionable, tactical, and operational steps.
And this graphic brilliantly shows exactly how we do that using a work breakdown structure, or WBS. It's a hierarchical diagram where we take that massive house at the top level, break it down into middle levels, say the foundation and roofing, and slice it all the way down into the lowest level, which we call work packages. These are specific, highly manageable tasks that you can easily hand off to a team member with a clear timeframe attached. Let's test that memory again. Here's another exam question, this time focusing on the core output of this planning stage. The question asks, which of the following is the primary purpose of the project planning phase? Read through those options carefully.
If you guessed C, you absolutely nailed it. Planning is all about building that detailed roadmap. By the end of this phase, you must have your baselines totally locked in. Your scope baseline, your schedule baseline, and your budget baseline. That roadmap becomes the gold standard you'll use to control the rest of the project.
All that prep brings us to Phase 3, the executing phase.
All the talking, the charting, the planning, it all leads to this exact moment where the actual work gets done and real value is finally created. If you remember that effort curve we looked at earlier, this is usually the longest phase, and it consumes by far the most resources. But as the project manager, you aren't just sitting back relaxing. You are actively managing your team, making sure materials arrive on time, constantly monitoring your progress against that schedule baseline, and most importantly, taking corrective action when things inevitably veer off track.
Take a look at this scenario question from the source material. During the executing phase, a project manager is frequently involved in making decisions about daily activities and solving problems as they arise. This is part of, what is this technically called?
The correct answer here is B, corrective action. When your project starts drifting away from that detailed roadmap you spent so much time on in Phase 2, because let's face it, they always do, corrective action is the exact mechanism you use to wrangle it right back to its original baseline. It's daily problem-solving in action.
Finally, the finish line is in sight. Phase 4, the closing phase.
The product is built, the app is coded, or the building is standing. But hey, the project isn't actually over yet. You don't just drop the mic and walk away when the work is done. A professional closing phase means you formally deliver the final product and get official customer approval. You release your resources, meaning your team and your equipment can go on to do other things. And critically, you evaluate your performance and record your lessons learned. What went right? What went terribly wrong? You document it all so your very next project is even better.
Now, before we wrap up, we really need to talk about project constraints, mastering limitations.
These are the invisible forces that threaten to derail literally everything we just talked about. It's called the Iron Triangle, and it completely rules project management. It's made up of time, cost, and scope. Now, these constraints are highly interconnected. If your client suddenly demands a larger scope, maybe they decide they want an extra bedroom on that house you're building, you can't just say yes without a trade-off. You are going to have to sacrifice by requiring more time to build it or a bigger budget to pay for it. That triangle absolutely must balance.
Okay, to completely lock this all in your brain, so you never have to crack open a textbook on this ever again, screenshot this summary table. It perfectly maps out the defining, planning, executing, and closing phases right to their core, essential focus. Think of it as your ultimate reference guide for exactly how a project comes to life.
I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. In the real world, that iron triangle never, ever yields. So, if a crisis hits your project tomorrow and you're forced to expand your scope, which constraint are you willing to sacrifice first, your timeline or your budget, just to save your project? Think carefully about that trade-off because your success as a project manager depends entirely on it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer and keep mastering those projects.